Marrow's taken over this land, dictating their terms, Khan snapped. And now, because they printed a fancy flyer, you're ready to forgive and forget? Silence. One villager awkwardly coughed. Another muttered, now that I think about it, this isn't the first time they've pulled something like this. Grid sighed internally. Damn, I almost got fooled too. Before the conversation could continue, a new voice cut through the air. Excuse me? Grid turned to see a young man standing at the entrance A player, judging by the green mark floating above his head. The newcomer smiled politely. From what I've heard, Marrow bought land from residents here. You all agreed to sell. They didn't force you, did they? Grid's eyes narrowed. Who the hell is this guy? The player continued. After selling your land, you were planning to leave Winston. But then, when you found out about its development plans, you suddenly wanted to stay. This isn't Marrow's fault, it's just your own personal interests. The crowd grew tense. A villager snarled. What kind of garbage is that? Did Marrow send you? The player held up his hands, his expression still calm. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to maximize profit for trading companies. If you think rationally, you'll realize that coexisting with Marrow will benefit you. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a few villagers began to nod. He's got a point, one admitted. If we cooperate with them, it might work out. Grid gritted his teeth. Damn, this guy is persuasive. Before things could get worse, Khan stepped forward. You are absolutely right, he said evenly. Coexisting with a big company sounds wonderful. The player smirked. But, Khan's tone sharpened. Winston is part of Count Stime's domain, and this land follows the law of the people. The player blinked. The what? Khan nodded. In Count Stime's lands, before major changes are made, residents must be informed. Count Stime himself designed this system. He let his words sink in before continuing. Years ago, pioneers discovered new lands in the north. That event changed the lives of every village and town nearby. The forge fell completely silent. Grid's eyes flicked to the player. Now let's see how you respond, Mr. Smooth Talker. The blacksmith spoke of Count Stime's decree that the common folk must always be informed of changes, ensuring they had a fair advantage in adapting. Grid's eyes narrowed. So Marrow's company completely ignored a direct order from the Count? He crossed his arms. Then the Lord should be held responsible. He let them monopolize information about Winston's future. Khan nodded gravely. That's the root of the conflict. The young man who had been trying to sway the villagers' Korwa leaned back against Khan's workbench, arms crossed. Ha! You know what? You've convinced me. Then, turning toward the gathered villagers, he announced, I heard that your appeals to the Count were blocked by both the Lord and Marrow's company. Is that true? Murmurs of confirmation rippled through the crowd. Reaching out as if extending an invisible lifeline, Korwa declared, Then the corruption of Marrow and the Lord must be exposed. I will take this matter directly to Count Stime. A wave of hope surged through the crowd. Someone even shouted, He's our savior. Grid, watching the scene unfold, stood in stunned silence. This guy just manipulated an entire village into handing him a quest. Korwa hadn't been assigned the mission, he forced them to give it to him. As Korwa confidently strode out of the forge, Grid hurried after him. Hey you, he called. Korwa paused, looking back with mild surprise. Oh, you're the statue from the forge. Grid's eye twitched. Statue? For a second, he considered strangling the guy, but after a deep breath, he calmed down. Let's cut to the chase, Grid said coolly. I'm sure Marrow gave you a task. So why did you switch sides? Korwa sighed, giving Grid a mocking look. For God's sake, just check my quest log. Grid hesitated, then summoned his system window. Quest. For the sake of the people of Winston, you have betrayed Marrow's company to aid Winston's residents. Evade the company's punishment and report Winston's situation to Count Stime. Conditions. Gain an audience with Count Stime. Rewards. Title. Apostle of Justice. Maximum reputation with Winston. Gift from Count Stime. New skill. Courage. +10 to all attributes. New skill. Unwavering justice. Grid's jaw nearly hit the floor. What kind of busted rewards are these? His gaze shot back to Korwa, who smirked. What's wrong? Korwa teased. Jealous. Grid grumbled. Tell me how the hell you managed to pull off a hidden quest. Kurwa grinned. Ah, so you noticed? I made them give it to me. Standing proudly, he lifted a finger in the air. Satisfy has a high degree of freedom. He smirked. I don't wait for NPCs to give me quests. I make them give me one. Grid stared, speechless. Kurwa continued. Only a few players know this trick. But soon, this method will be all over the forums. He tilted his head. What's with that sour face? Grid crossed his arms, sulking. I'm one of the first players. Kurwa snorted. Then, unable to hold back, he burst into laughter. Wait, you didn't know this? He doubled over, clutching his stomach. Boogaloo. That's hilarious. Everyone's been using this method. Wiping a tear from his eye, he held out a hand. All right, let's be friends. Grid glared. Then, without a word, he turned and logged out. Kurwa blinked. Ha! He rage quit. Shrugging, he continued toward Count Stime's castle. I should hurry up, he muttered. Can't waste time. Despite playing 8 hours a day since the game launched, his level was barely 30. And all because of my stupid class. He clenched his fist. Beaker. A class with low combat power, low health, barely any weapons, and no escape skills. His strongest attack was Evil Paganism, which required 10 minutes to cast completely useless. His only hope was the Courage skill reward from this quest. It would boost all his stats attack, defense, and agility. He needed it. I can't just rely on my tongue forever. When Kurwa arrived at Count Stime's castle, massive iron gates blocked his path. 2 stern-faced guards stood watch. He cleared his throat. Good afternoon. I'd like to enter. No response. Kurwa shifted uncomfortably. Awkward. He tried again, this time with more charm. I'm just a humble traveler. If everything's in order, please allow me to pass. Silence. This is weird, he muttered. They're not even acknowledging me. Then, a voice rang out from behind him. They won't answer. Kurwa whipped around. Standing there, adjusting his glasses, was Rebid. A very unwelcome sight. Kurwa forced a smile. Ah, Mr. Rebid. Fancy seeing you here. Rebid returned the smile, but his eyes glinted with malice. According to strict orders, the guards were told to report your arrival immediately. He adjusted his glasses again. I was expecting you. Kurwa's stomach sank. This bastard's starting to get on my nerves. Rebid took a step closer. His voice dropped. You couldn't even convince the people of Winston, despite all the help we gave you. His tone turned mocking. Maybe you've decided to betray us. Kurwa's stomach twisted as he registered Rebid's words. Treason? His persuasion skill wasn't working on him. Why? Before he could process further, Rebid turned to the nearby guards. Arrest him. The soldiers closed in instantly, chains rattling as they advanced. I've studied your skills, Rebid said smoothly. They won't work on me. You understand why you're being arrested, don't you? Kurwa's heart pounded. This is bad. And then he ran. Oh shit, I can't fail this quest. But before he got Farthwack, a chain whipped around his neck, yanking him back violently. His breath caught, his hands clawing at the metal links choking him. With desperate hands, he reached for his knife. Damn, this isn't even a good weapon. But I have no choice. One of the guards saw the blade and lunged. Clang. A spear knocked the knife clean out of his grip. Kurwa's eyes widened in horror. I can't win. I have to run. Frantically, he tried to log out. System notification logout is currently unavailable. His blood turned to ice. Rebid smirked. It's useless. Kurwa whipped around to face him. Rebid adjusted his glasses. You didn't think we could neutralize your logout spell? 2 guards wrestled him to the ground. He thrashed, desperately trying to break free. Rebid loomed over him. You'll revive if we kill you, he said coolly. So we won't. He leaned in, voice dripping with malice. Instead, we'll lock you up. Kurwa stopped struggling. No. System notification. You have been captured by Rebid. You will be imprisoned in the castle dungeon. A timer appeared above his head. If you remain imprisoned for 72 hours, real time, the Apostle of Justice will appear and rescue you. Warning. This is an extremely dangerous quest. You may refuse it. Kurwa's breath hitched. 72 hours. That was insane. The longest he had ever played in one stretch was 20 hours. And if he exceeded that, the system would force him to log out, locking him out for another hour as a penalty. His mind raced. If I log out, I fail. He gritted his teeth. But I'm a lonely guy. No job. No responsibilities. No one to bother me. He could do this. If I put the capsule into sleep mode, he muttered. That way, he could stay inside the game without pushing himself too hard. And if he succeeded an S-class quest, a second class, this was too big to pass up. Korwa sucked in a breath. All right. System notification. You have accepted the quest. Apostle of Justice, prison escape. You will receive the second class. Associate of the Apostle of Justice. Failure has no penalty. As the timer ticked down, another system message popped up. System warning, capsule entering sleep mode. Your brain waves will be monitored. In case of danger, emergency services will be dispatched. External interference will trigger intervention from an SA Group security employee. Korwa clasped his hands together. Please, he whispered, if you help me complete this quest, I'll be faithful to you until the end of this game. He leaned back against the cold dungeon wall and waited. SA Group headquarters inside a massive corporate skyscraper. The developers of Satisfy monitored thousands of game events in real time. The lead developer, Lim Keelho, received an emergency alert. Urgent. Meeting request. Subject. S-Class quest activation. His brows furrowed. S-Class quests were incredibly rare. This needed to be discussed. Keelho stood from his desk. I'll be there shortly. As he walked toward the meeting room, his mind raced. An S-Class quest. And a second-class unlock? That meant a player had unlocked the ability to wield two classes. This was monumental. But the method concerned him. 72 hours of in-game captivity? That was dangerous. He pushed open the conference room door. On the screen, the player's profile was displayed. Player, Korwa real name, Dam Alambator age, 22 country, Mongolia class. Speaker, one of the staff whispered. A Mongolian player? Another developer nodded. Yeah, Mongolia has low player activity. A woman at the table, Choi Nahi, spoke up. His class is Speaker 1 of the weakest, but he reached level 30 just through quests. Lim Keelho crossed his arms. What does the Mongolian branch think? A video call opened. The Mongolian regional manager, Park Inhak, appeared on screen. Greetings, he said with a grin. Keelho narrowed his eyes. We're discussing player safety. Park's smile widened. Oh, we're monitoring him closely. If he's in danger, we'll pull him out immediately. Then Park leaned forward. But I have a proposal. The room fell silent. Park's voice dropped into a serious tone. Korwa might be the first player to successfully obtain a multiclass. He turned to the holographic display of Korwa's in-game character. The first dual-class player. And he's from Mongolia. The Mongolian branch had high hopes for him. One of the SA Group directors smiled. If this succeeds, it'll be huge news. It could increase Mongolian player activity. A secretary spoke up. But Mongolia has low capsule adoption. Most still use traditional setups. The director waved a hand. This is an opportunity. A big one. One of the senior developers frowned. But if he fails, what will that do to our reputation? Park chuckled. Oh, come on. His gaze settled on the countdown timer. The longer he stays in, the higher his chances of success. He leaned back. The quest was designed to be beaten. As soon as the director of the company finished speaking, he turned toward the team captain, Yoon Nahi. Can you tell me the probability of success for this task? Yoon hesitated, then shrugged. I've uploaded the report. You can check the numbers yourself. The director pulled up the report. Then his eyes widened. What the hell? He bolted from his chair. 9%. The entire room froze. Wait, the director muttered. The player unlocked a hidden quest. Shouldn't the odds be higher? The lead developer sighed. This mission involves meeting the Apostle of Justice in an underground prison. The Apostle will rescue the player after hearing about Winston's situation. He scrolled through the system files, eyes darting across the data. But first, we need to determine who the Apostle is supposed to be. The director rubbed his temples. We need to ensure that the player actually survives this quest. Then Lim Keelho's expression changed. A sly smile spread across his face. One of the staff members noticed immediately. What is it, Mr. President? Lim Keel-ho grinned. Booga, just look at this. The man peered over his shoulder. What? What am I looking at? Lim Keel-ho tapped the screen. It seems we have an unexpected variable. The developer's eyes flickered across the data. Then his face fell. Oh, shit. He swallowed. The player who received the information about Korwa's quest. He paused, then exhaled sharply. Dot was Grid. Meanwhile, in a street food shop, Grid was drunk. Slumped over the counter, red-faced and sulking, he slammed his fist on the table. What a damn shame, he sniffled dramatically. This stupid quest gave me nothing but gold coins. The shopkeeper, who had long given up on trying to get rid of him, sighed deeply. Grid pounded the table again. Khan, you old bastard. The shopkeeper twitched. You're too loud. It's late. Go home. Grid ignored him. Why didn't I get the quest? He wailed. Why him and not me? Huh? Huh? The shopkeeper rubbed his temples. Grid wasn't done. That guy just said a few words and got a huge quest. Meanwhile, I paid for that old man's hospital bills. He thrust his bowl forward. More fish soup. Extra vegetables. The shopkeeper sighed again. Grid's home? 1 a.m. Grid stumbled inside. Gotta be quiet, he mumbled. Then, you should have told me you were coming home late. Grid froze. His younger sister stood in front of him, arms crossed, glaring. She jabbed a finger at his chest. Do you even know what time it is? Grid blinked. Why are you still awake? His sister huffed. I was worried someone was spending too much time in the capsule. Then she sniffed. Her eyes narrowed. Wait a minute. Are you drunk? Grid ignored the question entirely. Instead he grinned. Ah Shin, you're such a sweet little sister. His sister rolled her eyes and stomped toward her room. Shut up. I was just watching TV. Go to bed. Grid snickered. Boogaloo. My little sister's going through puberty. A pillow came flying at his face. SA group meeting room, one of the developers groaned. But shouldn't the probability of success be higher? He frowned at the data. Something isn't adding up. He hesitated. Did the supercomputer make a miscalculation? Choi Nahi shot him a look. That's impossible. The developer sighed. I know. I just needed to calm down for a second. Lim Keel-ho chuckled. You're only panicking because the chances of success dropped. The developer folded his arms. But the one person who should know about Korwa's situation isn't the apostle of justice. He scowled. It's Grid. Another developer groaned. Damn it. Grid is the worst possible person for this. He rubbed his temples. How the hell did someone like him get a legendary class? He clicked on Grid's profile. What has he even been doing all this time? The screen flashed with information. Grid player profile legendary blacksmith of Pagma achievements. Crafted epic arrows. Received class quest. Nothing else. The developer's eye twitched. This guy, he groaned. A hidden quest is going to waste because of him. Another staff member hesitated. So, will he fail the quest? Lim Keel-ho's smirk widened. If we expected things to go normally. He tapped his screen. Then yes. A pause. Then, but dash his smile turned sharp. Grid is anything but predictable. Count Steim, Akaro Dungeon. The crowds were roaring. Our group is the strongest. Join us. We offer better loot shares. We need more fighters. A group of girls watched from a distance, unimpressed. One of them sneered. These guys never put in effort when we joined. Another scoffed. What's gotten them so excited? The first girl pointed. Her. The group turned. A woman stood at the center of the frenzy, smirking. Her name? Ephemera. She raised her hand. I'll join the strongest team. Her eyes gleamed. Prove your worth. The moment Ephemera set her condition, the men jumped at the opportunity. Of course. Anything for you, Lady Ephemera. The group charged into battle, desperate to impress her. Lady Ephemera, stay with us. We'll protect you. A fire mage stepped forward, summoning a massive inferno. Take this destructive fire wave. An archer followed, releasing a precisely aimed shot. 1 point gap, and finally, a warrior swung his massive axe. Lightning strike. Ephemera watched them, unimpressed. Mediocre, she muttered. Not what I'm looking for. Then a powerful skill surged through the battlefield. Ephemera shivered. Her eyes snapped toward the source. Who was that? The momentum, the execution, the sheer force. This was exactly what she needed. She smirked. Perfect. Without hesitation, she activated her ability. System notification, skill copied. Whirlwind of Madness? LV? Ephemera's smile widened. That's all I needed. Meanwhile, the battle ended. One of the men wiped his forehead. Phew, that was rough. He turned to Ephemera. Now, Miss Ephemera, you'll join us, right? Silence. Miss Ephemera? They looked back, she was gone. Miss Ephemera? Dungeon entrance, far away from the desperate, simpering men, Ephemera stood alone before a dungeon gate. She examined her newly copied skill. I've been preparing for this for days. Her fingers tightened around her weapon. With this skill, I should be able to do it. With a calm breath, she activated her teleportation ability. Time to complete this S-rank quest. The dungeon door rumbled open. A howling wind escaped from within. Ephemera stepped forward. I need to focus. She pulled up the quest details. The difficulty is incredibly high. Her eyes narrowed. And my opponent, a figure sat on the throne, shrouded in darkness. A notification appeared. System notification, boss encounter. Eternal Hermit. Piero. Ephemera's heart skipped a beat. Then she grinned. The strongest knight of the Saharan Empire. Piero. The legendary knight stood, his voice dripping with disdain. Was it Asmafel who sent you? Ephemera tilted her head. Her confidence remained unshaken. I can win. Then swords rained down from above. Her eyes widened. Shit! She shouted her command. Tartan activate. A massive steel golem materialized, shielding her. Ephemera smirked. Tartan, the strongest defensive skill of the number 1 ranked guardian knight. She glanced at her abilities. Duplicate skills remaining. 9, use limit per skill. 1, a minor drawback, but more than enough to win. Piero watched her carefully. Then he moved. Ephemera raised her hands. Counter barrier. A shockwave repelled his attack, sending his own force crashing back at him. Piero staggered. His eyes narrowed. This skill. No. It can't be dash. Whirlwind of Madness. A maelstrom engulfed him. Ephemera grinned. You won't die from just this. She unleashed another barrage. Powerful ranged attacks flew toward Piero. Mana consumption is insane, she muttered. She floated backward, activating levitation. I need to regain distance and recover mana. Then Piero appeared before her. Her stomach dropped. What? His sword was already inches away. His voice was cold. Irrevocable death awaits. Ephemera gritted her teeth. Then, illusion projection. Piero's blade halted. His eyes flashed with fury. Asmafel. Ephemera landed softly on the ground. Her smile returned. Now you'll be trapped in my illusion. Ephemera clenched her fists. She needed to restore her manifest. Just as she was about to use another skill, a system notification appeared. System notification. Due to continuous skill usage, you have reached your limit. All characteristics temporarily reduced. Her heart sank. No dash. Even as her power drained, she held on to one last thought. If Piero was still trapped in the illusion, she had time. But then he froze midair, and his eyes snapped to her. Her stomach dropped. He's already recovered? Monster. She gritted her teeth. My stats as a duplicator are too low. Her only choice: quit while she still could. System notification. Quest rejected. You have failed the mission. Level -2. Asmafel's trust decreased. She stared blankly. 2 months of training gone. Her shoulders slumped. I could have had an incredible title. A title perfectly suited to her class. Her hands shot to her hair. Arg! She screamed in frustration. A super rare S-rank quest. Wasted. Then a voice. Excuse me. She blinked, startled. A man stood before her. Aren't you Miss Aaron? She frowned. Who's asking? The man smiled confidently. I have a request. Would you be willing to take on our task? A system notification appeared. New quest available. Ephemericide. Ugh. Another useless quest? Then she checked the rewards. Her eyes widened. She grinned. Marrow Company. Interesting. With a sweet smile, she turned to the man. Of course, I'd be happy to help. Khan's Forge. Hey Grid, don't be mad. Khan pleaded. Grid crossed his arms, sulking. Leave me alone. Come on. I couldn't just give such an important quest to the first person I met. Grid glared. And yet you did. Khan sighed. The company is watching everyone in the village. If you had tried to leave Winston, they would have caught you. But Korwa, a total outsider. Khan placed a hand on Grid's shoulder. I couldn't risk putting my benefactor in danger. His voice trembled. If something happened to you, I would never forgive myself. You're like a son to me. Grid froze. TCH. His anger softened. Fine. Stop crying. Khan sniffled. Grid grinned. Let's get back to training. Khan nodded. The competition is in 2 days. Are you ready? Grid picked up his hammer. More than ready. Training montage. Grid versus steel hammer swings. Sparks fly. Metal bends. Grid's skills sharpen with every strike. If I use my skills often, I'll get better. He pressed forward. I can feel it. I'm improving. With each blow, he molded not just the steel but himself. This feeling, it's divine. Hours later, exhausted, Grid collapsed onto a bench. I'm dead. He opened his status screen. Legendary blacksmith's breath. Leveled up. That's it. Disappointment sank in. All that work, and it's nothing like when I made the Jaffa arrows. His eyes drifted to his creations. Well, can't expect much with these poor materials. Stats check. Grid squinted. At least my stats improved. Extra stat points earned, he pondered. I should invest in agility, but stamina is important too. Alright, 60 points in agility, 70 points in stamina. Grid grinned. My stats look insane for level 21. Comparison. My stats match a level 75 player. His smile widened. I can't fight like them, but I can outstat them. He fist pumped. I'll show them tomorrow. The competition, Winston Square. The square buzzed with excitement. NPCs, players, spectators all gathered. There are so many NPCs here, one player whispered. Of course, they want to protect their forge, another replied. The locals cheered. Grid, we believe in you. Protect our forge. Grid stood at his workstation. Player raised an eyebrow. Huh? What's with his equipment? Looks like a noob. This competition is pointless. Let's go. Across the square, the Baron smirked. How's our champion doing? His assistant bowed. Everything is going according to plan. Then, announcement. Competition begins. The crowd hushed. The host raised his hands. And now, introducing today's main event. The host dramatically gestured toward the stage. Introducing Irina from Marrow. The moment she stepped forward, the neutral spectators lost their minds. She's so cute. A goddess. I don't even care who wins, just let me see her smile again. Ephemera blew a kiss. The crowd erupted. Irina, we love you. Grid watched in disgust. Unbelievable. This level of adoration, could she rival the Black Witch Yuri? He turned toward his own supporters. They fidgeted awkwardly. One muttered, She's so adorable, though. Grid clenched his jaw. I had fans 5 minutes ago. Now, nothing. The host nudged him. Stand up, please. Grid rose to face his opponent. Ephemera smiled sweetly. Mr. Grid, fate has brought us together today. Please take care of me. Grid scowled. TCH, you're not my type. Ephemera blinked. The crowd gasped. Wow, isn't it rude to talk to a beauty like me that way? Grid snorted. You're cute. Sure, but kids shouldn't go around calling themselves beautiful. Ephemera's smile froze. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. This idiot. I will humiliate him. Who are you calling a kid? I'm 20. Doesn't mean anything to an adult like me. System announcement. The competition has officially begun. The competition, the host raised his voice. The theme is daggers. You have 3 hours. The best dagger wins. Ephemera smirked. Win this and I'll get a new title. Gold. Stats. But she scanned the quest description. Difficulty. Unknown. That bothered her. Does that mean his skills are also unknown? She threw coal into her furnace. No matter. My plan is perfect. She'd wait for him to start forging, then copy his blacksmithing skill. With the same skill set, it would come down to luck and tools. And I have the better tools. Grid, however, had already begun. Ephemera's eyes widened. Wait, he's already heating the metal? She rushed to catch up. Don't panic, she told herself. She grabbed her epic-rated hammer. Doesn't matter how good my gear is if I don't have the right skills. She turned toward Grid, activating her copying skill. Let's steal his blacksmithing technique. But skill copy failed, her blood ran cold. Grid noticed her staring. Need something? She froze. Her skill observation was level 7. She had copied advanced blacksmithing skills before. How did it fail? Her mind raced. Could he already be a master blacksmith? No, that would mean. Her eyes widened. He has an epic class. That wasn't possible. Only she and Agnes Katz had received epic classes. Or could he have a unique class? Panic set in. If I can't copy his skills, I'll lose. She turned toward Rabbit. Rabbit! The man approached. What's wrong? This guy has a mentor. Let him participate. Rabbit frowned. Change the rules? The competition already started. Ephemera leaned in. Do you want to win or not? Rabbit hesitated. Then, understood. Grid narrowed his eyes. Rabbit whispered to the host. The host cleared his throat. Mr. Khan, please come to the stage. Miss Erin wants you to participate. Khan blinked. Me? Yes. She insists the student should work with his mentor. The crowd erupted. 2 against 1. That's amazing arena. Grid gritted his teeth. They really think nothing of me. Khan rolled up his sleeves. Well, if they ask, let's work together. He turned to Grid. I respect you as a blacksmith. And I want to protect my forge myself. Grid grinned. Then let's crush her plans. Ephemera smirked. She focused on Khan. You are my real target. Activating skill copy. Blacksmithing copied. 3rd highest level. A system notification appeared. She grinned. Perfect. Locking eyes with Grid once more, Ephemera mentally sighed. So, luck will decide it all. Huh? Even if he's a master, fate won't let him change anything now. Confidently, she activated her blacksmithing skill and began crafting her dagger. Let's see who comes out on top. Her hammer struck metal with precision, sparks flying as she shaped the blade. A triumphant smirk spread across her face as she glanced at Grid's work. They're still stuck refining the blade contour? Pathetic. I've already completed the forging. With swift movements, she transitioned to refining the finer details. As long as luck stays with me, I won't lose to them. Meanwhile, Grid, entirely absorbed in his craft, observed his mentor. So far, everything is going great. Khan's concentration is as sharp as ever. The rhythmic pounding of metal against metal filled the air as Grid worked the molten steel, his focus unwavering. Iron and flame, I can feel them merging perfectly. With a practiced grip, he lifted the glowing blade with his tongs. This is the moment when fire and steel become one. Khan, grinning as he watched the young blacksmith, let out a chuckle. Incredible! I'm honored to be a part of this event. Grid, not breaking his focus, muttered, We're not done yet. Reaching into their material reserves, he pulled out a pristine minotaur horn. We'll use this for the dagger's hilt. This thing cost 10 gold, you know? A sudden commotion behind him made Grid pause. Turning, he saw Ephemera proudly raising her completed dagger above her head, the host already announcing her victory. Erin has finished her dagger. The crowd erupted in cheers, their admiration unwavering. Even the host, examining the weapon, couldn't hide his amazement. What an incredible piece, a work of art as beautiful as its creator. To finish such a masterpiece in under 3 hours. Grid begrudgingly admitted to himself, I hate to say it, but it's damn impressive. She's more than just a smug brat, she's got skill. But there was no time to dwell on it. He turned his attention back to the minotaur horn, carefully selecting the perfect section. Focus. Finish the job. Meanwhile, in the stands, Baron Valmont clapped slowly. Now that is a dagger fit to enchant any noble. Rebbot nodded beside him. Yes, it's certainly impressive. Khan, however, remained unfazed. Watching his student work, he smirked. It's a fine piece, but it means nothing to you, right, Grid? Without hesitation, Grid replied, Of course not. I just finished mine. Proudly admiring his creation, he muttered, People are going to have heart attacks when they see this. Before anyone could assess Grid's dagger, the situation took a shocking turn. A group of city guards suddenly stormed the square. One of them drew his sword, pointing it straight at Grid's throat. You thief! The crowd gasped. The guard's voice rang out. We just received word you're an accomplice of the criminal Korwa. Arrest him immediately. Thanks for watching, guys. Comment Flamingo and subscribe for future parts.